Sorry. Okay. We're back.
We're back.
So we've been on a sabbatical for 4 months.
4 months.
And we kicked it back in gear last week, came back into our normal routine, and it's really good.
It's been really good.
It feels
good to be back.
really refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
We never have taken a sabbatical before. We've been in
No.
ministry for 20 plus years, so we didn't quite know what to expect. We had some plans and other things that were going on in there,
Yeah.
but you don't know something until you experience it.
Yeah.
And we have good coaching counselors around us that helped us walk through it.
Yeah.
And we had to trust the Lord in different ways. And just because maybe we're not here at Harvest doing something, it doesn't mean that your life still isn't. You're still not thinking and feeling and working through things.
Yeah.
So it's been, and God really set it up for us to do this. It was a gift from Him.
It was definitely a gift from Him. Something
Yeah.
we were definitely looked back and making the decision and talking to others and getting counsel from others. It was really like, yeah, this is the right time for us to do that. And I really feel like one of the biggest things, I don't know all the reasons why we took a sabbatical or why you need to take a sabbatical or why God was saying to take a sabbatical. But one of the biggest things I've walked out was saying, we've ended one season of our life and we are gaining, we're entering into a new season. And that sabbatical really, I think we'll look back and say that was a really defining moment for our lives and such a good time.
Absolutely.
Had a great time together. We're a little bit more on the empty nest side, and we vacationed. We
went out west to Grand Canyon.
We did adventures. We hiked.
We did some.
There was no little kids who were complaining.
No.
We did whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
That was wonderful. It was good. And in the middle of it, we had a lot of, I do want to say this. When you do get off the doing train and you're in the being place, you still have to, there's a lot of things that go on the inside that God helped us work some things through that probably couldn't have done it while we were doing ministry. Ministry is such a place of receiving and giving, that as soon as you turn the giving part off, the receiving, you go, oh, I'm not giving. And then you recalibrate in your identity and your worth, and just probably normal things that people would go through. And it kind of brings you to a healthier place, like who am I and what's life about and where are we going? Those are normal questions that have come up, and we had to, you work through those things.
I think one of the things that you and I really embraced was the uncomfortableness of not doing anything.
So much of our worth can come from accomplishment.
Yes, and I wouldn't say that you and I have really worked to not find our
I don't
worth
think it was an
in
issue.
ministry. No,
Yeah.
but there is an uncomfortability of not doing. And even I was telling you this morning that we had our second child go off to college, and now letting the first one go off was hard for me. It's like a season shift. I see motherhood ending in the way that I've known it, but it was okay to send the first one off. When sending our daughter off right as we were beginning the sabbatical was actually even more difficult for me. Because I didn't have, I'm letting go of motherhood and I don't even have anything else to put my hands to.
Yeah.
So it's in that place of downtime, even when you go on a vacation. Sometimes I see people go on vacations and they just go, right? Because to stop.
They're trying to get it all in.
Yes, but
I get it.
But also people are afraid of stopping and dealing with the things that are actually underneath.
Yeah, who wants to do that?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we really embraced was the uncomfortability of what happens when you stop everything in your life to a certain extent, what comes up inside. And we had some great...
I think people would want to find out what that is, because they're like, I'd love to take a 4-month break. And if the Lord has that for you, go for it. I do think we should build Sabbath rest and sabbatical rest into... Even the government's talking about that more. When you they're trying to establish more of those routines, and even businesses. I was reading an article about a few businesses that they say they want you to take, this much off, and this is what it'll look like. And if one company, they'd say, you haven't had a sabbatical yet? You haven't done it? Take advantage of it. You need it. And people were coming back and were better workers, or even they actually went somewhere else, but they walked in something greater. It was a very secure, forward-looking company.
Yes.
Anyway.
I think it really promotes creativity.
Yes.
Because you're dropping off the things, you have this chance to stop doing the things that you are used to doing.
Yeah.
And when you come back, you go, do I want to pick those things back up?
Yeah, and I think we
leaving space
we
for
prayed
creativity.
like, it's not like, well, if we just go pray for a retreat. I mean, I took prayer retreats. I did fasting, or we did pray. We did a lot of things that like, hey, how do we just stay fresh in God? And it was good, but it wasn't like, is there something that has to happen? And it came to a point where through a couple conversations, like, take a sabbatical, which is a little surprising because we didn't know what a sabbatical was.
Yeah, that wasn't really in our language.
No,
vacation, time off,
yeah, that
emotional
makes sense.
health,
Yeah.
physical health is there, but to actually say sabbatical, I would have said, oh, that's like something that, more Orthodox churches do,
Yeah.
not charismatic Pentecostal churches. I don't think that's in our Pentecostal charismatic churches. I don't think that's in our structure.
No.
I think it should be.
I think it should be.
I really
Some
think it
have
should
them,
be.
but maybe our stream, because we have the presence of the Lord or something. I don't know, which we do, but help us, Lord.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but God rested,
It was good.
and I think there's huge key in there of how He taught Israel to rest and how He wants us to rest too.
Yeah, I was reading one of the devotions on the Bible app that if you have the Bible app, the one that's from Life Church, Craig Groeschel, they're every day now since the last year they have like a 2-minute devotion, live devotion, and live recorded, whatever. And one of them was like, God created heavens and the earth 6 days. The 6th day creates man. Man gets up the 7th day fresh, ready to go out the chute. Let's do this. And God says, hey, today we're not doing anything. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's like, I've been created to like do everything. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, we're not doing it. We're going to rest. Mm-hmm. We're going to be together. Mm-hmm. So before you can even work, God set up, live from a place of rest.
Yeah.
And when you don't know how to do that anymore, which feels like a lot of us don't know how to do that, I get that, then it's like God says, you really need to learn to rest. And with rest comes trusting that other things are going to work out.
Yeah.
That's the key of rest. That's the whole Sabbath system, like God's like, on the 7th day, you're not plowing, you're not sowing, you're not tending, you're not checking things. And so I'm not doing that, so what's going to happen? It's going to fall apart. Well, God says, like, I'm bigger than you. I started this thing.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing I think about is that you have this agricultural system, and usually your grains come to peak ripeness within a couple days' time, right? What happens if I was a farmer and my wheat crop was coming just to the head and it's Sunday?
Yeah.
It's scary. You could just have your wheat crop, destroyed. And on that day, you have to trust the Lord that either He will take care of it, or if it is destroyed, then He's going to provide for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a place that often when you stop and you rest, you realize what you have to give to the
Yes.
Lord. And you realize your vulnerability, and you realize you have to let go of the results or that thing that maybe you love, and it's time for it to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to continue talking about this. Mm-hmm. Let's push this to something different.
Okay.
And I'll even do another one. But I want to keep talking about rest, because how do we've walked through this, and we're good at family time.
Yep.
We're good at prioritizing
Our marriage
and relationship with God, and and like the whole work and rest dynamic tension that's always trying to pull you. It's always that thing of, you have your job, your career, and then you have your family obligations or your fun time or your friendship obligations, and then you have like, okay, church stuff, and I'll call that your calling, and all the things are kind of mixed up out there. Mm-hmm. How do you do rest? How do you do rest in the midst of life? It's a whole fillers and drainers and negotiating that, because it's in our culture today, we're going 100 miles an hour, and we have to be, there's a sense of perfect, and you can't offend anybody, and you got to say the right thing, and there's an expectation that is really, we all know ultimately it's unrealistic. Mm-hmm. We read an article the other day it's called First Thoughts? First Things, a Catholic periodical, just like intellectual and really good about moral and ethical issues and cultural things. It
challenges us to think.
It challenges a lot of things. It's really good. Way. And we read an article about a guy just basically he got caught into things. He was a Yale professor or something, and he just basically said, he's been on both sides. The side where he basically like, it's easy to judge people and accuse people like, you should have known better. You could have did this. You could have did that, right? And then he said, but when you're on the other side of it and you're like, you screwed up. Because all the reasons why we all screwed up as human beings, right? We're all sinners in that sense. We have the capability of just on our worst day doing dumb things, but by the grace of God go I. When you're on that side, you have a little bit more mercy and compassion and forgiveness and redemption in people's lives, simply because we realized, and God talks about that, hey, you need to forgive others because I have forgiven you. Like, don't forget, not that you have to beat yourself or keep yourself down. I'm not saying any of that kind of stuff. Like, see how God makes you. You're great. You're awesome. But we also know, like, there's this place of like, have compassion and have mercy. So I bring it back to on rest. How do we walk out of this place of like, we do need rest. The world's kind of like, we're going bonkers, and we need to give each other, we need to be nice to ourselves. We need to give each other break. So how
because I do think there's this side of it that maybe particularly in the stream that we are in, that we want to judge people and say, well, the reason that you need this rest, the reason you need rest, the reason that you need counseling is because you did something wrong. I was talking to somebody a couple years ago, and I felt like the Lord was, we're just very pretty much real people, and I was saying to them, I feel like I've been really growing in being like my being calling versus my doing call. And they were just very quick to say, but you should always be in your being call. And you shouldn't be in your doing call. And I'm like, look, this is life. Life is, there's things that I have to do, and there's things I want to do. And how much of those things are kind of intermixed, right? And I think for probably, up until probably the last, 5 or 6 years, the Lord's been working on me, but I've always thought, well, if you need to take a break, or if you need God actually, brings you to a different direction, what did you do wrong? Right? I am much more of the opinion that we live in a world that we were never really designed for. And because we live in a fallen world, and because we have fallen people around us who don't always do what they're supposed to do, we can get tired, we can get weary. And I think God knows that it is, I'm going to say it this way, it is inescapable because we live in a fallen world.
That's a good word.
So I could be perfectly, aligned with His Spirit. I could be perfectly praying. I could be perfectly, but we live in a fallen world. And there's a lot of things that are going on, and we need those times of rest, refreshing, counsel, outside perspective from people. And it's not anything that we've done wrong. No,
it isn't. We want to because we want to fix. We want to prevent pain. We want to like avoid, and it's good. Let's do all that. I'm okay with that. But when you're not, I think we can't be surprised. And I think there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of benevolence that people will give you when you're authentic and you're vulnerable and you're real. Now there's some people, they take advantage of that, and it's just gross, right? But there's people who are like, you're a human being, I get it. And maybe as you're older, you realize, because when you're younger, you have an idealistic way of doing things, and it's normal, and it's not like if you're, you should learn this, and no, it's okay. That's kind of, you're bent that way, you're built that way.
And you get things done.
I was reading, like, I tell you, two scriptures that really ministered to me is that Jesus says that He's the Lord of the Sabbath. So if let Him be the Lord of your rest. In other words, let Him lead you to rest. And take His lordship over my fear of what other people think. So He's the Lord of the Sabbath, and let Him lead you. The other scripture that I want to read that really ministered to me, and actually, again, I got stuck in like, maybe something's wrong with me. Honestly, something is wrong with me. Something's wrong with everybody. So let's be real. That's why we have a full-time Holy Spirit inside of us. He's the full-time counselor. So we definitely have that. So it says here in Isaiah 40, I love this. He says, do you not know, have you not heard, the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable. So God doesn't become tired. And it's, okay, God doesn't become tired, right? So he always has something good for us. He gives strength to the weary. And he who lacks might, he increases power. And youths will grow weary and tired, though youths go weary and tired. But he says, even the young people who, you're young, get up, get out of bed, go do something. You're strong. What do you mean? You know, the best sports players, you know, maybe they're primed at 30 or 32 or something. Like, you're young, you can do it. The older you get, you slow down. They get tired. Vigorous young men, woo, they stumble badly. It's not a shame. It's saying, hey, reality. Yet those who wait for the Lord, they'll gain new strength. Like, we need a Savior. We need help from above. We need the Spirit. So even if we're going through something, even as a believer, and we have a victorious mindset, which I'm totally for, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And we need rest. We need to enter into the grace of God. And I don't like saying it that way. I think it's better to say, we're always entering into the grace of God. Yeah. It's not like, well, you haven't entered into the grace yet. No, we are entering into the grace. We just need more grace. And those who wait upon the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings as eagle. I will run and not get tired, and I will walk and not become weary. So, I mean, wherever you're weary and tired, I think there's a lot of good, fruit to root and figure out those things. And I love that. Let's do that. But also, listen, rest. Give yourself a break. Do the extra thing. When we took a sabbatical, and there was the principle of have fun, really make sure that you honor yourself and stay in a place of living from a place of rest as much as possible. And I know there's seasons where you're just go. There's kids obligation, there's deadline obligation, there's your own obligations, that we kind of weary ourselves. But I wanted to share, we had a sabbatical, and we're like, we've got to incorporate this more in our life. Thank God for a gift, 4 months of off. And it wasn't like peaches and cream and we were all perfect. There was a lot of stuff. We packed a lot of, because of circumstances, and our son was married, and some other things that were going on. It was a lot. But we strive to enter into your rest. Yeah. The writer of Hebrews says, look for that. Yeah. Ask for moments of that. Take downtime. Let the Spirit minister to you.
Yeah, I think so. One of the big things that the rest time gives you is you can gain a new perspective of stopping and saying, I don't want to restart that. I think you have these moments where you're like, why am I doing that? Yeah. One of the things that we purposely had mentors. We purposely went to counseling. We didn't go to counseling because we were wrecks. We didn't go to counseling because we were having marriage issues. We went to counseling.
Stigma on that.
Because we wanted to really lean into what God was doing.
Take advantage of it.
Chris Ball, one of the people who, president of Elam Fellowship, who was giving us some mentoring, in the middle of that, one of the things he said is, I've seen people take sabbaticals, and when they came back, nothing was different about them. They basically just put a pause on their life and then tried to re-enter into it and then began to break down again. Yeah. He's like, really lean into working that process in your life. And one of the things that happens when you go on vacation, one of the things when you take a day off and you actually rest, you don't just work. Even one of the wonderful things, if you have a lot of mental stress in your job, then when you take a break and you rest, you probably, to physically be able to move your body and to do things, helps your mind to rest. But one of the biggest things is that you begin to say, oh, I don't like this. And one of the interesting things that happened to us is that long, dormant heart thoughts began to come up. Mm-hmm. And we'd be in conversations with, our counselors and our mentor, and we would say things. And then we'd have to go back and dig out why. Why am I saying that? Why do I feel that way? Now, when you're going through your life, you're just doing, and you don't go, and
you don't have the time or make the time.
Right? And your character is like, stronger as you age, and so you begin to do more and you hold more and you don't say certain things because you have a stronger capacity. But actually stopping, you can reevaluate your responsibilities. And even for me, I mean, not just ministry-wise, but I went and reevaluated, why do I feel like I have to do certain things maybe in ministry? Why do I feel like I have to do certain things as a mom? And looking at that and say, what was fine in a past season, what God was calling me to in a past season, he's actually not calling me to anymore.
Yeah, it's like there's a guilt side of things. I know you have a message that's kind of brewing in you about, letting things go, let things happen, and like, why do we continue to do that? Why do we continue to go that direction?
Yeah.
And I guess one of the benefits of that sabbatical for our stage in life is when you stop, some things you're like, that was a good thing. Other things are like, that isn't good.
Yeah. Or it was good and now it's not good anymore.
Yeah. Or it's that leadership question. Like, would we continue to do that? What is the question?
Would we start like a
Would we start what we're doing already? Would we do it again?
Yeah.
Would we start
in
over?
hindsight, has this been working?
Yeah. And that's a healthy leadership question. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah. And oftentimes, and this is something I was talking to you about, I'm preaching in 2 weeks. Oftentimes when something's so good in our life, we don't begin to recognize when it's not working anymore, when it's dead or it's dying, and it's time to let it go. For me personally as a mom, motherhood and my kids' kid years, the ages from like 5 to 13 or so, were so good. I reveled in those.
Even though it was hard too.
It was very hard. I learned so much, very hard. But they were so good that when it was time to let go of that season of my life, it was harder for me to recognize that. But when you take a rest and when you are opening up your life to other people, they begin to say, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's out of step or that's out of season of where you're supposed to be.
That's good.
Yeah. Rest is important.
Rest is very important.
Space is important.
Yeah.
A lot, just as we were kind of talking about this, a lot of people have gone through, in the last year and a half, 2 years, a lot of pushing from culture because of COVID, everything changing. And sometimes we can just be in like a snowball situation.
Exactly. And we're tired.
And we're not, it's interesting. We were just talking about, this now the pandemic is becoming an endemic. Like, how do we live with something that's going to be around? And obviously, we can't continue doing what we did when it was a pandemic.
Yeah.
And that has to shift. But I think also there's that place in each one of our lives that when you have to stop and say, okay, is how I was coping with something before the way God's telling me to go forward in the future. Yeah.
It's like what's that show that we watched on Disney Plus? It was the Secret Society or the Great Society of Benedict or what is it?
Something like that.
Something like that. And
it's like a kid's
The Great Emergency.
Series.
It's like based off a book series. Like, it's always the Great Emergency.
Yeah.
This emergency. It's always this sense, and it's like, what is it? The whole thing of like, if the devil can't stop you, he'll push you.
Yes.
And we're getting pushed. We're just keep getting pushed. It's like, slow down, and it'll push against the grind of the culture, but it'll push against the grind of what our personal culture.
Yeah.
We've got to incorporate that more in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
It's good.
I guess I want to speak to one of the things, if you have had this feeling, as Justin and I were coming up on taking sabbatical, there was a number of people who said, I wish I could take a sabbatical.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I would encourage you, that a sabbatical can be 2 weeks, a sabbatical can be a month. Some people are on a forced sabbatical because they lost their job. They're not looking at it that way. They're not looking at it like, wow, God's giving me this time. They're looking at it as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Versus he said, actually, I'm creating this space for you. It's a gift for me. So if you have that desire to take a sabbatical, you need to pay attention to it, because there's probably something that your inside spirit, the indwelling of the Holy Spirit inside of you, is saying. And once we stop and get curious, why? There was people who actually said, I envy you. And they said it with envy, as if like, and you're like, okay, well, whatever. But if you envy that, we took a sabbatical, instead of like going, wow, I'm
They
a
got it, no,
horrible
I didn't.
person.
Yeah.
Why I'm a horrible person, or you move into judging somebody because they get to take a sabbatical and
Yeah,
you don't.
what about me?
What's
Yeah.
wrong with Justin and Freda that they have to take a sabbatical? Or I'm envy them. Instead of judging or pushing that feeling down, saying, wow, what is my spirit saying inside?
That's good.
And paying attention to that, because I believe God has a strategy for you to take a sabbatical.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes a sabbatical is literally, I am not going to do the dishes after dinner every night, right? Like, what is the strategy that brings you into being able to rest?
Yeah, it's good. And the fruit of rest is, like you say, it's creativity.
Mm-hmm.
It's and sometimes some of this stuff will stir up these other areas in your life, and let the Lord use that to guide you and to heal you and to bring you to a place. You know, you're resting physically, but you're resting emotionally and mentally, and He'll just draw you and remind you of who you are and your calling, and just reorientate things. So it's such a positive.
I think one of the things that I gotta add this in here. One of the things that the sabbatical has done for me is that I have had enough time to get clean. And I had a lot of little, I can only say now in hindsight, I had a lot of little sticky areas. As if you've been walking through life and you keep stepping in a little bit of gum and it just keeps collecting on the bottom of your shoe. That's the little picture I was getting while you were talking about the sabbatical. I had a lot of little sticky areas. And so when life was happening, it stuck to me a little bit. Now, I was going to prayer and saying, oh, that I didn't like that. Lord, take that off of me. I forgive that person. I'm a little offended here. Like, I was trying to stay as clean as possible. But the sabbatical, like, really cleaned me off.
That's good.
And I keep telling you that I go into situations and then I'm like, I am so mellow. Like, I am just mellow. Like, nothing's sticking to me anymore. And when something does stick, it's so much easier to get it off.
Yeah.
So I believe there's this place that rest unsticks us. You know, Jesus gets down on his hands and knees and he washes the disciples' feet.
Yeah.
And he said, let me remove all the stickiness of the world, and so that you could be free.
That's good.
So that would be our heart for you. If you desire more rest, then get curious about it. Begin asking the Lord.
Begin asking the Lord. There's a lot of cool stuff on the internet that tells you how to do an official sabbatical or elements of sabbatical and incorporated them in your life.
Yeah, a lot of secular.
Oh yeah, it's
people,
becoming
Christians
more,
who are
and I
in
think
even
it will
secular.
more because of the pandemic and the stress and everything going on and the constantly back and forth. And people are like, "I'm tired," you know. And so I think be on the front of that, you know, go towards that, because I know the Lord will use that and to minister to us.
Yeah, awesome.
Amen. God bless you.
Blessings.
Thanks for joining us.